Hi, my name is Ricardo Jackson, CEO of Campbell Health Solutions. I just wanted to hop in here before the show begins to let you know about our Tuesday late night clinic. Basically, it's every Tuesday from 5 to 9 p.m. by appointment only. We do HIV testing, primary care, wellness checks, STD screening, and treatment. So just give us a call at 561-208-6595 to schedule your appointment.
Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to Positively Positive. I am your host, Susan Mintz. Is this, tonight, you are going to learn a lot. Of course, I think you learn a lot about a lot on all the shows, but this one tonight is really special too. If you don't know about what Positively Positive is all about, well, where have you been? We don't have tens of thousands of people yet, but we're working on it. This is a story show. We tell stories, we give you information, we talk about organizations, resources, not just in South Florida where we are. We talk about the people all over the country. We got them from every coast in the middle of the country. We talk about HIV and AIDS. That's it. If you have any component, any little bitty chip, little chip that is involved with HIV and AIDS, you are welcome to be on this show. And we are removing the stigma of HIV one story at a time, one show at a time. And that's why this has been a success, because I'm committed. I should be committed. I am committed. The show is committed. And there's passion with every person we've had on for the last year and a half. The passion to care about others is much greater than you can ever imagine. We love to share and care, and we are going to stay with the HIV and AIDS issue until it is eradicated. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my guest, because then I want him to tell you all about himself. I like my guests to talk about themselves. It gives me a break. BeFehr Counseling and Therapy Center is in Fort Lauderdale. And I met this handsome gentleman who does owe me lunch. I met him at Ricardo Jackson's Black Health Summit in February. And I approached him and said, and grabbed his card, would you like to be on the show? And I said, we talk about HIV and AIDS and I interview people. And he said, of course. So a little bit later, I got in touch with him. And tonight, this incredible counseling center and therapy center in Fort Lauderdale is going to be my guest. And as many of you know, when I take off my glasses, you know what that means. It's time to introduce my guest, Klifton BeFehr from BeFehr Counseling Center. Come on in.
Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate you being so beautiful and so warm and receptive to my participation in your show tonight. This is amazing. Thank you.
We just flow, Klifton. We've had our glitches over the years, but we just keep on rolling.
You're amazing. I really appreciate this time.
So tell us, well, we got you now for a long time. Now, tell us about BeFehr. I love that whole thing. The BeFehr Therapy Center, Counseling Center, what you do, why you are involved with what you are, what got you into this? Where are you from? Give me a background check and everything.
So I once again thank you. BeFehr Counseling started because of the fact that I am a third generation therapist. My mother was a psychoanalyst in New York. My dad and my mom are both therapists. My dad's a doctor of psychology. He's now retired, but my mom still carries her license at 79. Although she may not be practicing with a caseload, she is definitely very much in the market to come and work for me. And I'm like, thanks, mom. We'll circle back on that one. Um, but we started out. I would say we really opened the doors to BeFehr counseling. You know, before I was just a private practitioner doing work in the area with approximately 15 years plus experience in counseling and running groups. But we opened up BeFehr counseling in December of last year. We had a new location, moved from a bit of a closet space where I was running a private practice and grew it to being able to do something more for the community with psychiatric services, having a nurse practitioner, a psych nurse practitioner, as well as two other therapists. It'll be a total of three by the end of the next 2 weeks, where we're
Wow.
working on. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, wow, if you need therapy, you can go right into your family genetics there. You got therapy all over the place. But how did you get into this? The HIV component is very important. How your client base and where were you born? Number one, where were you born and where did you go to school?
So I was born in a small town outside of Lake Charles, Louisiana, Kinder, Louisiana. It's
Oh,
over by the Texas-Louisiana border,
yeah.
and really struggled with depressive symptomatology, lower SES, coming from that respected population. My brother was diagnosed with HIV when he was 18. He was in the military. He was very much ostracized and shunned, not just by my mother, but also by the community because it was a small town. People really didn't know how to navigate that with him.
Mhm.
So he really got lost in, not only being able to get some good, healthy support, but also being able to be just loved, period. And substance abuse ensued. He wound up later passing away due to complications from COVID, with the weakened immune system, as well as him having some challenges with substance use.
Right.
Um,
So it's
just
personal.
It
It's
really
personal.
is. It really is. It really is.
That's what this show is about. The people get who are on and the organizations and the places such as BeFehr Counseling. That's what it's about. It's very personal. You don't take on a cause like this without having some component there that touched your heart.
100%. 100%. I would like to say I see my brother smiling at the efforts that we have in this office, and really feeling a sense of support, at least at this time in my life. And I wish it was at this time in his.
How old was he?
My brother was 54 when he passed away.
Okay. Now, so your client, so you where did you go to school?
I finished my undergrad at Florida International University, and then
Okay.
I finished my master's at Nova Southeastern University.
So you really are a local boy now. You're a local
I
homegrown. And
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
so the other thing is, so what you opened up your counseling firm, you're a therapist, you have a master's. Are you going to go on for a doctorate in that too?
If time will allow it, at this current moment, I'm so busy trying to take care of and provide service for the community that I'm just trying to figure out time to eat during the day
Good.
as it currently stands.
So what with your clients, are they predominantly, is it HIV? Is it general counseling? What is your practice in Sioux? Give us all the details about this.
So there's a healthy mix, because of the fact that we've opened our doors to the community at large. We have a large portion of our patient population that represents the LGBTQ plus community, as well as those that are diagnosed with HIV or AIDS. We also see individuals, we see couples, we see families, we run groups. So we kind of run the gamut, but the majority of the patients that we do have identify as LGBTQ plus, as well as a number or a percentage of that really diagnosed with HIV or AIDS.
Yeah, you are so needed. You are so necessary and needed. There should be a place like yours on every corner. We would have a lot less troubles. So tell me about your practice, though, insurance and what goes on. You have a staff. Tell me about your staff and everything. And we also have where you're located. We have all that information. It'll run down on the screen or something. But I want to know about your staff and the passion you have for what you're doing, because I know that this is really personal, because you've committed your life to this.
100%. My dad tells me all the time that, Cliff, the reason that they call it a practice, a counseling practice, is because you never become an expert at it. You will consistently learn and grow and develop until you either retire or die. This is who I am. I am a therapist, whether it's having a listening ear for the people that I love and support in my own personal life, or having that listening ear for the people in the community. I can't break away from it. It's just part of me. My staff believes in that same those same principles. They show up as not only professionals, but they are extremely excited about being a part of the community in as large a way as I could possibly dream up, whether that's going to events at nonprofit in the nonprofit space, participating in the private sector events, as well as showing up in order to do some volunteer work. And we model that outside of the practice as well as within these walls. I have a clinical assistant who's about to go back to school for his doctorate. I also have a beautiful front desk staff. Her name is Maria, and she's amazing. She keeps us moving and scheduled and rocking and rolling. I have Teresa Albernas, and she is Faye Watt's wife, Faye Albernas. Teresa came on board as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and
Wow.
she and I really do bounce off each other and play well in this sandbox. For every patient that I see, I make sure that she puts her eyes on them. So she gets an opportunity to see how she can best support them from the psychiatric med management standpoint. Um, and both of the therapists that are currently working on staff have their own respective expertise. Monica, she is a female clinician that works diligently with those who are struggling with sexual challenges or sex issues, doing some sex therapy, as well as working with them on any other myriad of challenges that are coming across her desk, such as addictions and things of that nature. I have another therapist who's Spanish speaking, and she herself is working to make sure that she bridges that gap for those patients who are coming in who may be voiceless or who are marginalized because of their background. And she's working in order to make sure that she's accessing some of those couples as well as doing some of the family work within the practice. One last person, and that is a doctoral candidate who's finishing up his last semester. His name is Thomas. He's working specifically with the patients who are coming in who have been diagnosed with trauma, who are reporting traumatic instances, and he's working one-to-one with them for at least a 3-month period, and then we'll see how we implement him into the practice.
So basically, you're growing your practice compartmentalizing. You're doing, let's say it's a sexual addiction, a therapist who might be good with the sexual addictions. Somebody else might be with the LGBTQ plus the stigmas. So it seems like as you're growing, you want to get more specific so that your clients, when they call, can get to the right person.
That's correct. That's correct. At this current moment, any of the patients that I see on my caseload, I usually try and make sure that I tease out as many of the issues as they currently are presenting with or challenged by, in order to make sure that I spend that time with them working on those specific issues that I can access, and then I married them with one of the other therapists in order to work on the next leg of their respective development or journey.
That's wonderful. I love the words you're using. I can tell you're definitely into the therapy end of it, because you're using a lot of the same words. My late husband, he was a psychologist, and he worked with emotion disturbed and delinquent youth, and drug and alcohol addiction. I mean, he died at 47 from AIDS, but he was so good at what he did. But the words, it's amazing. Words jump out at me, and I would close my eyes and go, Jeffrey, is that you talking right now? Because you're definitely a counselor, honey, and you've got a great way about you. The other, what about if people call? How are they finding you? Is it word of mouth? Do you advertise? Or go to, like I met you at Richardo Jackson's Black Health Summit in February. But how do you promote BeFehr counseling?
Well, because of the fact that we do so much work in the community, those relationships are super strong. So it is a lot of word of mouth. I feel confident in the fact that we've established ourselves within the nonprofit and for-profit world. Excited about those relationships, and they just continue to give back to us in ways that are just extremely beneficial for all of the patients as well as for the community at large. We're on, Google, Yelp. My front desk staff, Monica, she's working her butt off in order to make sure that she gets the social media account set up and pumping out some good content that's giving back to us and inspirational, and it's life-giving messages. So I'm excited to see her tomorrow in order to go over the content that she's got planned for us, because I want to make sure that we're just bleeding good, positive, supportive messages, and that should come across all of the different mediums that we're using. And she's working her butt off in order to make sure that happens.
And is there any, though, at this point in your counseling practice, is there any one specific group that stands out more, having the highest incidence of post-traumatic stress or stigmatized? Or is there the one aspect right now that you're dealing with that you see the most of?
The interesting part about that, Susan, is like when we start talking to individuals in therapy, a lot of people don't even realize what trauma looks like. So many times, we go through instances and we don't understand that, oh my goodness, like that was a traumatic experience that left a lasting impression on me. It shaped the way that I deal with people and circumstances in life on a day-to-day basis. So I'd love to be able to say, like, this is that key population that's experiencing the most. But when we start digging into anyone's respective psyche, we start to understand that a lot of us, or most of us, are carrying traumatic experiences. Some of us have some healthier egos or some more resilience, whereas some of us are more directly impacted, and it hits us a little bit harder and potentially captivates us a little bit more so than, we'll say, a different person or a different population.
Don't you think, though, that the mind is an incredible place to live, because we are able to put things in different places, and if we don't want to face them, we can do that. At some point, it can surface and become the bigger demon than it was, but the mind is very good at putting things in the back.
I may lose some credibility when I make this reference, but I really believe in his work. Sigmund Freud spoke about the ego defense mechanisms, and I think we all kind of know about them, or most of them. But repression is a very real thing, and that's something that we talk about in comparison to compartmentalization. Denial is another real one, and it's not a river, right?
Yes.
Like those things come up on an unconscious and conscious level whenever our egos aren't strong enough to actually handle some of those challenges that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, or some of the traumas that we're still trying to wrestle with. And if we're not strong enough to face it, our mind will step in and start closing down walls and blocking out some of those experiences, so we can continue to go on with our job, taking care of our families, loving the person that we're sleeping next to. It's wild to be in this on a day-to-day basis, because it never ceases to amaze me just how interesting or intricate the next patient's case is. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, and the other thing is, do you think that today's society, 2025, and certainly I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, the 70s, I mean the 80s, my whole life, my brain is totally wired into a whole nother dimension of stuff. But I can function today really well. I have no issues with that. But I'm coming out of the 60 revolution and the 70s and the 80s, the pot smoking, and everybody was nuts anyway. But I'm wondering, it was a wonderful time to go dancing. Oh, yeah. Talk about didn't care who was in the next stall. I didn't care what it looked like, who it looked like. I just wanted to pee and go back out and dance. So, but the other thing is, do you think, though, today's world, today's society, and I'm staying right here in our United States, do you think, though, that today's culture is breeding a lot more dysfunction, negativity, and that social media has also affected an awful lot of people's lives in a very unhealthy way?
You know what? I say absolutely. Yes, I'm affirming that belief just because for one, there's really not a lot of space, no matter how much light is being shed on mental health, there's still not a lot of space to kind of like talk about it, right? Like we're doing a lot of things on the social media platforms in order to highlight, what gaslighting is, or what narcissism is, or what anxiety and depression looks like. But even when somebody says, "Oh my God, I relate to, the next reel that I'm seeing on TikTok," like, what do you do with that, right? Do you keep scrolling for the next reel that you identify with? Do you reach out to a number that's 9 times out of 10 not really provided on that platform? So like that's the part that's concerning, because it's almost like the social media, even in its attempt to like highlight or acknowledge these respective issues that are coming up within the community or within the country, we're not giving the resources or enough resources for people to grab onto in order to get help with that issue once they've seen it. So it's a match that's struck, it's thrown into the crowd, and then now what do you do once a fire spreads? Well, okay, well, everybody's now on fire with this information, but having somebody that's a professional to help them deal with that issue or address that issue, that's the issue that I'm struggling with. Where are we as mental health professionals in that
Right.
conversation and wrapping our arms around the community in a larger way to countermand some of these breakout fires that are taking place in social media?
Mm. There's a good and there's a bad. It depends how it's being used. The other thing, though, is, are you a family, when you do family practice, do you have mothers and fathers come in with their kids, or do you find that the family unit is broken up? What do your clients tell you about the family unit today?
It's interesting because the dynamics within the current political climate is putting a stress on some of those family systems. Having families come in where kids are living at the effect of some of the divisiveness that's taking place between mom and dad, or dad and dad, mom and mom. It's tougher to provide like the good wrapped arms around that family system because it's so diametrically opposed at times today. The idea would be creating a safe enough space for people to be able to speak out loud about where the conflict exists while still maintaining the focused vision of the family system. That could be kind of tricky sometimes. So we're not just doing the family therapy, we're doing some individual work with each one of those family members as well, so we can coach them on being able to use their voice, speak with empathy, but also speak in such a way that they can be heard, especially when the noise is getting kind of loud with some of the challenges that exist for us in America today.
The divisiveness has begun, it's ripped families apart. What insurance, how do you deal with clients if they don't have, the funds, or they don't have insurance? Do you do any pro bono? How does that work with insurance or none? What do you do?
So we have Medicare, and we're taking Medicare Part B. We're working on Medicaid. We do accept some of the more commercialized insurance companies or insurance plans. We do, and we have been working with sliding scale. So if patients are coming in and they really don't have the means, we try to work with them on capturing, a very nominal amount in order to have them still feel empowered about owning that place within the practice. And it's not, hey, we're giving you something, and then there's that internal conflict that they have where now we're just giving them something and they don't own it because they're not contributing to it.
They're not a charity case. Nobody likes to feel that. They want to feel empowered, even if it's a minimal amount. They want to feel like they're getting something and giving something. People don't really want charity by nature.
No, not at all. You're absolutely right.
And what about medications? You said you have a psychiatrist on board, or you have doctors? Can they write script? How do you feel about medications?
We do have we do prescribe medications. Teresa, the nurse practitioner, she's a psychiatric NP, as well as a general medicine nurse practitioner. So she's very attuned to what patients need at their current levels of care. With whatever their respective diagnosis is, she's actively participatory in making sure that they get what they need, and that works right along with what we're doing as therapists, because we believe in treating with medication as well as providing the talk therapy.
And are you close to Wilton Manors?
We are. We are on the current corner of East Commercial and US 1.
Okay, so I would assume you get some clients from Wilton Manors, don't you?
We do. We partnered with Holy Cross, so we have a standing relationship with them. We work directly with their doctors in order to make sure that any of their patients who are struggling with any type of mental health or psychiatric needs, they actually get referred right over to us.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. Getting back to HIV, though, is there any one person who deals with people who have been newly diagnosed or long-term survivors or who are involved with HIV? Do you have any one person in particular, or are you more with that because of your brother?
So is the question that am I inspired by one person that I'm currently working with, or what was the question? I'm sorry.
I wanted to know if there was one person more involved with HIV, or are you really involved with the clients who deal with HIV because of your connection with your late brother?
So yes, I would be that person. I usually try to hold space on my caseload for patients who have been diagnosed with HIV and or AIDS. And them being able to have an opportunity to come and just have access to my heart as well as my clinical skills. I try to make sure that that's something that I keep at the forefront of openings that I have in my caseload.
So you don't do any testing. Are you affiliated with the health department in any way?
So because of the fact that we have that relationship with Holy Cross, because of the fact that we're very much involved in the community with other nonprofit agencies, we have places that we refer them out to for the respective testing, especially once we find out that they're practicing unsafe sex.
Because there's very specific counseling to make sure they get tested, stay on their medications. So you would be the front man for that, basically, with HIV. And how are you seeing? Are you seeing an increase in HIV in your practice?
So currently, the patients that are coming through the doors for me, because they're coming through, most of them are coming through Holy Cross. They've been diagnosed for a few years now. The majority of the patients that are actually coming here that actually have been diagnosed have several years under their belt with walking through life with this diagnosis, as well as living life and growing in various ways above and beyond the initial diagnosis.
And what about same-sex couples? Do you have that? You have people come in with same-sex couples and marriage and I mean, that's a big thing today too. The whole LGBTQ community is like under attack, and it's so hurtful because it shouldn't. I think it's awful. So that's my personal thing. I just think leave that alone. It's none of your business. So do you have, though, specific guidelines when you're dealing with same-sex couples, or whether it's heterosexual couples? How do you deal with the same-sex marriage issue? What's some of their issues that you've encountered?
The interesting part about relationships is that we're usually dealing with some of the same challenges in gay relationships as well as heterosexual relationships. Some of the nuances are different. We're talking about open relationships. We're talking about having some intermarital permission to go out and have sex with other people as far as those open relationships are concerned. But for the most part, we're talking about communication, trust, finances, sex. Those things are typical for any relationship.
Right.
We start getting into some of the intricacies when we start looking at gay relationships and being able to respect one another and those respective roles that we've either signed up for or are kind of being offered up for by our significant others. How do we use our voice in that relationship, just like in a heterosexual relationship?
Trust is a big one. When you lose the trust in a relationship, you have the problem. My late husband used to say, when the communication stops, the relationship is over. Because as long as you can communicate, you can come into a situation and deal with it and compromise. But trust is the big thing. Was once that trust is broken, that's very hard to get that back.
100%.
Do you find that a big part of your practice is trust issues, whether it's family? It could be family, it doesn't matter if it's husband, wife. Do you find that that's a big issue in your practice?
That's a huge part. I just ordered a few books on working on forgiveness and working with several patients in the practice, because that seems to be a really big thing with the patients that are in our care right now. And we're just doing a huge push to try and have them work on the forgiveness piece, rebuilding the trust in their relationships after that's been broken, because betrayal starts to creep in. And it's almost like whatever we're dealing with at large within the country, that tends to trickle down right into those respective relationships at home.
But it is, a relationship's a relationship. You're going to have the same issues you're going to have to deal with. It all comes down to the same emotions, the same feelings, the same everything. That's what I'm saying. I don't care if it's a bisexual or gay or heterosexual. If you're in a relationship, you're going to have issues you got to deal with. And if you don't want to face them, you're going to screw it all up anyway. And what about what's the number one addiction you find in your practice? An addiction, a real addiction?
So I think there are a couple. One is porn.
Porn? What did you say? Porn?
Porn, yeah.
Porn. Porn?
Yes, pornography.
Yeah, okay, because that's your southern accent in there. Porn.
Porn.
I thought you said boring or corn, and I said, what's wrong with that? All right, so porn, that's a big one. People don't like talking about that one at all.
You'd be amazed at what people open up and talk about. Right? The other one is going to be some of the harder substances, the crystal meth, and that usually shows up within the gay men. And I would say another one that's coming up is food. People with eating disorders. The addiction to eating has really been another issue that's really been hitting our community hard, whether that's because of the fact that they're overeating or they're restricting their eating. The medications that are out there right now, Heads up, they're super dangerous if you're not working with a nutritionist, if you're not talking about some of those body dysmorphia, those issues with body dysmorphia or body image. It's just I'm trying not to step on people's toes.
No,
but,
do it. This show, you can step on anybody you want, honey. Give it to us.
Well, like, a lot of people don't understand that you look great, baby. You don't have to be a size 0. You know what? Like, that's not your size right now. You look great, but until you actually feel good about you, your body will never be beautiful enough.
No,
it'll never work. You're doing it the wrong way. Outside in is usually a terrible way to do it. So
yeah, it bothers me because I don't think food should be eaten for comfort. Food should be eaten because you're hungry or you need to sustain your life. But food is not a comfort. Booze is not a comfort. That just doesn't work, especially the food. What's interesting, Klifton, is that there was a time when, yes, you were certain sizes, but they've accommodated in our country to allow people to get bigger by getting the sizes bigger, the portions bigger. They're encouraging people that it is okay, and it's so unhealthy.
It really is. Unhealthy is for some of the people that we're treating. Unhealthy is an understatement. It's turning into a real crisis as people try to fight to drop weight. It's more like crash dieting, and less about doing things in a nutritious and healthy fashion. It's becoming really difficult for even doctors to kind of monitor some of these things because people are easily accessing the medications via mail, and at the local walk-in clinic. I say that not pointing any fingers, but it's becoming a problem.
Yeah, discreetly in the mail, delivered to your door. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Hazel, don't go there. Yeah, right. We're going to ask you about something else with this. How do you have any clients? I mean, you've got a really full service practice. Let's face it. BeFehr is really fair. You've got a little of everybody, Forrest Gump box of chocolates. You got a lot of everybody in your toolbox. But what I'd say is, how are you dealing with people who are betting? On all the betting issues, because you can go online and bet and all the football games and all this other stuff. Do you find any addictions with that?
So gambling addiction has been something that Monica's been taking on. She's become, because she's fresh out of school with a year under her belt in practice, but she's a respiratory therapist for 10 years. So she's a solid professional, but her heart just bleeds care and support, and she's into doing brief solution focused therapy and doing some harm reduction. So I try to give her as many of those patients as possible because of the fact that she's locked in on it, and she's heavily invested and read up on it. What we're doing with those patients is we're really trying to make sure that they are fit for this level of care. This is the equivalent of outpatient care. So you're coming to therapy once a week. At worst case, or I guess the next step up for us in this practice, they would be coming in twice a week. And that's usually to do checks and balances and accountability. If people are really struggling with that gambling issue or the online betting, that takes a lot of encouragement, effort, and honesty. That last piece, that honest piece, is the toughest part for most of the patients that are struggling with that, because it's so easy to pick up the phone. It's like playing a video game. You pick the phone up, you can press a couple of buttons, and all of a sudden you got $200 riding on the line for the next game. Or you got 5,000 sitting out there somewhere waiting for your next lineup to hit big. So it's become so easy to do a lot of harm to oneself, to your relationships, and it's just scary to see how we open those doors
Right.
and floodgates to make some of the most critical and sometimes damaging life decisions. It's odd. So playing catch up to that as a therapist can be can feel like you're chasing your own tail at times. But we have support.
I want to make sure we put your information up again. BeFehr counseling. I want to put that underneath to make sure they have your website. We have your website down and your phone number. That's so important right now because we do have hundreds of people who watch. And a lot of them, even the information, they may not be in South Florida, but the information on a program like this is all over the country because we're talking about issues on this show. It's not just one thing. One thing leads to another and to another. So we grow in this show and it just takes us where it takes us. And that's why all over the country, when there's people watching, they can still get all this valuable information from a professional. I mean, you're giving all this free therapy and advice. You're losing money tonight. You're losing a fortune on Positively Positive. One of the things, how do you schedule? Is it an hour appointment and then once a week or twice a week and then you wean people off? And then how does it work, basically?
We usually have them call the number, the 954-600-0551 number. That's the office number. Maria will answer and she'll talk you right through setting up your first appointment. That first appointment's usually with me. Once we get into session, we start to unpack some of the things that's bringing you into the practice, or into therapy. By the time you've left that first session, we have your next appointment set up. 9 times out of 10, it's set up for the following week with a psychiatric appointment with Teresa, the psychiatric nurse practitioner, and then another appointment. So a total of 3 appointments within the course of 1 week. Actually, a total of 4 because you'll have one with me for the initial one. You'll meet with Teresa to talk about your psychiatric medication management if you need it. You'll meet with Monica to set up a treatment plan in order for her to actually get clear on what your goals and objectives are. And then you'll have a follow-up appointment with me within that next 7 to 10 days.
You have a layered approach. So it's going from one to another until it get. The other thing is, we're going to say, so Holy Cross is the hospital that you're mostly affiliated with?
Holy Cross, Imperial Point, and soon Cleveland Clinic.
Imperial Point too. So they refer to you and you refer to them. It's just back and forth.
So they refer to us. We try to make sure that we spread that good all around. So if we have patients that are struggling with any type of medical issues, there are several respective organizations that we are partnering with. So we try to make sure we find out where that patient is located and what services they need in order to try and match them with an organization, or in this case, a hospital close to their home.
That's great. And what is the phone number again?
Can you say that again, Susan?
The phone number again?
954-600-0551.
Oh, here it is. That's great. If there's people who are outside of our area, do you have people that you can refer to? Let's say somebody from Alabama or New York. Do you have people outside of Fort Lauderdale and South Florida that you can refer people to if they need mental counseling, they need help, mental health counseling or addiction counseling?
100%. All of our practitioners are responsible to maintain some type of professional relationships or to be aligned with a professional organization. So my home organization is American Group Psychotherapy Association. You know, my dad and my mom were a part of that. My big brother is also a therapist. He's a part of that organization. So that's my home, my professional home.
Would you repeat that, please? Repeat that whole little, what you just were saying.
So my dad and mom are a part of the American Group Psychotherapy Association. That's my professional home. And I encourage all of my practitioners to have their own respective professional organization that they are working with or partnered with in order to make sure that we have those relationships, not only across the country, but also throughout the world, because my home organization is international. It's actually the International Group Psychotherapy Association.
It's International what?
Group Psychotherapy Association.
Wow. Did you ever hear of William Glasser?
I have.
My husband studied under him. He was a reality therapist, and he studied under William Glasser. We were always out in California with him, reality therapy type thing. But I think Sigmund Freud, he was the best. He was just lie down on the couch and talk to me.
We use reality therapy here. It's really good to pull back the bullshit and actually focus on some of those core issues.
Yeah, he was very good, William Glasser. He had his own unique way of approaching it, and Jeff really liked studying under him and becoming a reality therapist, that type thing. So are your parents, you said, who's retired? Your mother, your father's retired, and your mom still works?
Dad's retired and mom still has her license.
Oh, so daddy relinquished his license when he retired?
Yep.
Oh. But you really got into the family of it. Did you always want to go into this field?
They said that there was something in me. And I was just like, I just want to go to school to be a nurse. They were like, nah, you need to check out therapy. You need to check out psychology. And I fell in love with it. I've always enjoyed connecting with people. I've always wanted to know more about people. So that inquisitive nature works really well in this field, especially when gifted with some good training and education, and definitely a loving, supportive family that can help along the way.
Yeah. Do you have other siblings?
I'm the only child. Well, I'm the only child from my adoptive parents. I'll say it like that. I'm the youngest of 13 children from my biological mother and father.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, like, I have so many questions I want to ask, because I feel you were so approachable when I met you, and I really didn't even know anything about you. But when I went up to you, you were approachable. And when you said like nursing, I pick up from you even now, your heart is to serve people, which is why your practice is probably definitely going to continue to flourish and grow, and you keep giving them the great care that they need, because it doesn't get any easier out there.
We're excited about being able to do this work. I myself have my own personal experience with mental health challenges. Depression is very real for me. Being able to actually give people back some of those tools, resources, and support that I was afforded when I was going through some of the darkest times of my day, I can't keep that. Right, like that's a gift that was given to me, and I can only keep it if I give that away. So every one of the practitioners here owns their own story with mental health, or whether it's directly or indirectly with people that they love and care about. So that fuels the passion behind these four walls.
The other thing is, how do you empower? I mean, what are some tools that you can tell us, listeners, about? How do you get self-esteem? How do you empower? How do you get up when everybody seems to be wanting you down? What are some of the tools you use or things you suggest?
One of the first things that I would recommend is that people actually start to realize that each and every one of us have things that we've been through, and those challenges have built intestinal fortitude. It's our responsibility to remember that you've been through really tough times before. And if you can find those nuggets, those tools, those resources that you were able to utilize in order to get to this place today, based on what you were going through, if you can polish those off or dust them off, you can probably use those again with whatever you're facing today. If you can pick up the phone and call 1 to 2 people in order for them to give you a reminder of just how awesome you are, That's another way to feel empowered and to actually build some
Right.
of that self-esteem. Asking the people in your life how you've impacted them in a positive way. That shows up as them being great mirrors for us whenever we forget just how cool and great we are. Pulling up YouTube, typing in motivational speech about anything. It could be about work, family, self-esteem. That content is out there. It's free. It's available. I use it on a day-to-day basis in order to keep me uplifted. Reading is super awesome. I mean, I love being able to pick up a book and eat some information and then internalize it so much so that when I sit with the next person in session or in a conversation over coffee, I can give back to that conversation in a positive and affirming way because I got this little piece of information that somebody else could benefit from too.
If I need therapy, can I come to you?
Absolutely. Come see me.
Yeah, Jeffrey used to say I was his thesis. I admit that I got personalities. I think when you open up your mouth and admit who you are, I always tell people, look in the mirror and talk to yourself. Self-motivate is very hard when you're all by yourself and there's nobody else in your world. How do you self-motivate?
So, I go back to what I just said previously, really being able to remember who you are. And there are a myriad of ways of doing that. Sometimes it's just quieting the noise, that self-limiting belief, those limiting beliefs, those naysaying voices inside of our head. But being able to silence that for a moment, doing a guided meditation, going for a walk, just to kind of like clear your head, or let some of that information just turn over in a new space, which is, out in the sunshine, South Florida sunshine. If we can do some of those things, we can start to press that reset button. And if we can reset, then we can start taking in some different wordage, some different messaging, some different ideas.
Exercise. People should be exercising because once you start moving and exercising, that helps. How do you feel about faith? Do people come in there? Faith to me was always a big part of my life, but don't you think that people who have a lot of faith, it helps too to get through the rough times?
Absolutely, without question.
Do you talk about that with your client? I mean, what I'm asking you, are these the things that you talk about? Get out and walk, go start exercising, join a club, join a group, but they're also about faith and ask people how their faith is?
We do talk about faith. A lot of our patients that are coming in through the doors are practicing some type of, or participating in some type of faith-based practice. We talk about what it looks like to be reading some of the information from Hay House Publishing, Louise Hay, Eckhart Tolle, Ernest Holmes. We talk about the Bible. We talk about whatever it is that patient is currently holding on to or needing to reach for. We want to make sure we support them in getting it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how you empower people. You give them tools that they can use to help get themselves motivated. Because you really have to, at some point in your life, you're going to have to self-motivate. You're going to have to be your best motivation.
100%.
So where do you see yourself going in the next 5 years with your practice? Where do you want to expand? And you're open to everybody. You take insurance. You'll work with people who don't have a lot necessarily. You're involved with Holy Cross, Imperial Point, etc. And you're building a beautiful practice. But where do you see BeFehr Counseling and Therapy Center going in the next several years?
I want us to be an established organization that actually is providing so much good back to the community in ways of not only caring for them and their mental health issues or mental health concerns, but also providing new and upcoming therapists an opportunity to get funding for their master's and doctorate program. I'd like to see more Black and brown men within this current field of work. I want to make sure that we are actually finding ways of pouring back into the community financially. I want our hands to be more active in the nonprofit world, setting up not only groups in other agencies, but also being present for professional development. I really want this organization to be a pillar in the community.
You want it to reflect your heart and your passion.
I just wanted to do some good, Susan. I feel like that would be really egotistical of me to be like, yeah, I want it to look like me. I don't like
your heart.
Yeah,
We're not looking at color. We're looking at spirit. You want to continue to serve your community because your heart is that of a servant to give.
I definitely want the community to feel me. So if that's the case, absolutely, I'll go with that. You're right, my heart.
And what do you enjoy about what do you enjoy the most about what you're doing?
No 2 days look the same.
No 2 minutes.
The rate of return on the invested time, energy, talent is continuously getting shorter and shorter. The conversation I'm having with the patient today yields results tonight, tomorrow, and that's kind of tricky.
Do you feel like you're growing through your clients, that they've also pour into you in ways that you see yourself being able to grow? Do you learn from your clients also?
You know, some therapists may balk at what I'm about to say, but I say yes. Like, I'm a human being. I would be a cold-hearted, detached, sterile therapist if I wasn't allowing other people's stories and experiences not to touch me in ways that it impacted me in a positive way. Yeah, I grow.
And do you go to conferences where there's hundreds and hundreds of therapists?
Oh yeah. Throughout the year.
We used to go regularly, once, twice, 3 times a year, to these big conferences. And I was amazed at how sick and messed up they were. I'd never been around so many messed up people in my life as therapists or counselors or what they call themselves, doctors of this. I really mean it. There's a sick group of people out there counseling people.
Yes.
Who haven't gotten their own heads in order. And I mean that seriously. I would just sit back and I could watch and think, you're not going to be touching anywhere near anybody I know. You haven't gotten your own act together. How does that work? Suppose you encounter other therapists that you know are not playing with a level playing field, if they got their own issues. What do you do?
One of the biggest things that I encourage any of the people out there listening is to make sure that whatever you're experiencing in that therapeutic session, you're challenging it. If you're feeling uncomfortable about something, you should be able to ask your therapist about what the conflict is or what that respective issue is that you're having internally or within that setting. If your therapist isn't able or is unwilling to address that, it might not necessarily be the best place for you. Right. Because that means that the therapists themselves hasn't necessarily grown to the place that they themselves can handle conflict or they themselves can handle being challenged about something.
You know, many of our guests have who are HIV positive, when they first became symptomatic and they'd go to their doctor and they'd eventually get tested and they would, find out that they were HIV positive. So cold and callous and treat them like, so you're HIV positive, bye. I mean, you have to have a relationship when you're talking about someone's personal being. You have to definitely make sure that you are the right person for that person, because you don't treat people like that if you're in a healing field like yours.
There has to be space for hurt as well as for healing. And if we can't provide space for both of those, we either need to go back and do some more education or we need to get out of the field. And I say that not being a jerk or not being callous for the other professionals in the room or in the world. We have to be able to give people an opportunity to speak about what it feels like, to speak about the challenges that they're dealing with.
Because
To speak
people
about the
aren't,
loss.
yeah, people aren't, I mean, people aren't going to you because they got nothing else to do with their lives. They got an issue. And if you're not the right person for them, then you're not. And you just have to find someone else. But I just want to say, in the time we have, I want to say to Klifton Fehr, it was such a pleasure to meet you at the Richardo's event. And it's such a pleasure. I'm so glad. Tell Maria I was looking forward to meeting her. I'll come down there one day and say hi to everybody. I'd love to do that. No therapy, just social. And you'll come up here at some point. But I'm just saying thank you, Klifton Fehr of BeFehr Counseling and Therapy Center in Fort Lauderdale, for your wonderful work that you do and for your heart. And
Thank you so much.
You're a blessing. We had a great night. Anyway, and I want to say thank you. We put you back up there, BeFehr.com, BeFehr. And then I want to thank our viewers, our listeners, wherever you get your Positively Positive podcast, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, my website, SusanMintz.com. And I am Susan Lee Mintz, and I will always be committed to love. Ta-da!